Hello, my friends. This is Andy coming to you live from Yorba Linda, California with
Hi.
Hedia,
Hello, everyone.
the star of the day, already on radio in Colorado.
Yes, it was such a good time.
What was the guy's name again?
Tom Muller.
Tom Muller. So well, I guess it's already been live. Was it live on the radio?
He was recording it. It'll go live this week.
All right. So those of you in Colorado, or I guess you could also probably find it online, but his name is Tom Muller.
Yes, the Tom Muller Show, 94.7 KRKS Radio.
Did an interview this morning. I couldn't even listen because you have the doors closed.
I didn't want to disturb you.
I was going to spy on you. All right, go to livingfearlessdevotional.com, and that's where you'll find the Apple podcast of the audio version of the broadcast that we do live. Once you get there, you're going to go there and give it 5 stars, and then you're going to say, "God is fantastic" in a review. It's not easy to find, so look for it. That's the work you have to do to get this fantastic thing.
There you have it, folks. This fantastic thing.
That's the work you have to do.
Oh.
That's our payment. All right, here we go. We're going to go to My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. And I still have this feeling we don't have much longer to go. With Oswald.
To July.
July. All right, if that's what you say.
I went back and looked at your posts.
Yes. Oops. We got this thing that pops up over here on this end. I love that picture of that road. And at first I didn't understand why he had used that picture, but it makes sense now. Because we are talking, again, from My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers on May 25th. The title is The Good or the Best. The Good or the Best.
There it is, right there.
This is awesome. Now I understand what the title means. Okay. The reference is Genesis 13:9. If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left. As soon as you begin to live the life of faith in God, fascinating and physically gratifying possibilities will open up before you. These things are yours by right. But if you are living the life of faith, you will exercise your right to waive your rights and let God make your choice for you. God sometimes allows you to get into place of testing where your own welfare would be the appropriate thing to consider if you were not living the life of faith. But if you are, you will joyfully waive your right and allow God to make your choice for you. This is the discipline God uses to transform the natural into the spiritual through obedience to his voice. Whenever our right becomes the guiding factor of our lives, it dulls our spiritual insight. The greatest enemy of the life of faith in God is not sin, but good choices, which are not quite good. Choices which are not quite good enough. The good is always the enemy of the best. In this passage, it would seem that the wisest thing in the world for Abram to do would be to choose. It was his right. And the people around him would consider him to be a fool for not choosing. Many of us do not continue to grow spiritually because we prefer to choose on the basis of our rights instead of relying on God to make the choice for us. We have to learn to walk according to the standard which has its eyes focused on God. And God says to us, as he did to Abram, "Walk before me."
Oh. I love this.
You do? Do you love it more the second time?
I do.
Which part?
Well, I just, of course, personal experience of walking this way. And I want to say our relationship is one indication of that, because I know friends around me were asking, like, you don't really know this guy and you're moving your house and he's got 5 kids and he's got cancer. Like, what are you doing? And I just followed God because I prayed about it. And God was silent, other than the first message I heard that you were the one. But in terms of moving, the Lord, and there was a period of time when Andy and I were working out when we would marry, what the relationship looks like, pre-marriage, abiding by God's principles of not being intimate before. And it was a funny it was a funny experience. Like I tell you, maybe we'll tell you in greater detail later on, but it was a funny experience. But I kept praying to the Lord about what I should do. And then after about 2.5 weeks, I heard, Mary, daughter, goodness will follow. So that was all I needed to take that step. And though my rights, or if I wanted to think of it in the earthly context, we would have, I would have demanded so many other things. I would have had so many other expectations as a woman. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of women in faith are not listening to the voice of God and are listening to their flesh. And it's such a tragic mistake, because if you use that as your only guiding principle, you will walk in a relationship that is not of God. And the comfort I have is, though those details may still cause us angst, we're still working through those details. I have the surety of knowing I walked in faith, and God is it's interesting because he tells Abram to walk in front of him. So in other words, like God is saying, I'm leading you from behind. I'm the shepherd. I'm here. Don't worry. And work everything out, daughter. You know, he gives you that confidence that you are on his path. So whatever comes at you, you need to just work it out. And Oswald has used that theme before, like, don't get stuck in your emotions. Don't be a wimp. Have discipline, fight the enemy, and walk in faith. Because as soon as you step on the path of faith, all of the darts of the enemy come at you, because they want to get you off the path. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. He doesn't need to kill you. He just needs to distract you and get you caught up in your emotions and your feelings. And I want this, and oh my God, I'm feeling that. And when you have the surety of walking in faith, then you know, okay, this is just my flesh. I need to figure this out, because I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. I hope that made sense.
Oh yeah.
Did it?
It was so good, because you made me think of a couple things. But before I say that, make sure and comment if you're watching. If you pull over, if you're driving your car first, and then respond, and say hi, and let us know where you are watching from or listening from, and especially if you're even watching or listening to the replay. That would be amazing if you could do that. That'd be great. Let us know your thoughts on the passage. Again, you can find it on your whatever device you're on by going to utmost.org, utmost.org, and when you go to that website, it'll give you today's message. You don't have to search for it. So one of the things I thought about when you reminded me that God told Abram to be in front, and will be behind you. It reminds me of, I was on the SWAT team in Anaheim Police Department, and quite often I was the entry person because I had the dog. And depending on what the situation, sometimes I'd be in the front, and I'd have 5, depending on what type of situation we're in, how many people would be behind me. And there's one thing going in, knowing that the shooter, because SWAT is usually used on an active shooter or something that's happening that's very dangerous. And I knew my dog was there to protect me and to go. And actually, my dog had to actually go in first.
I was going to say, the dog.
But sometimes we'd go in together. But here's what I thought about when you said, yeah, it was interesting that God said, go before me. And that is, I had to learn to depend on the people behind me. Because as I'm entering, although I can see and I look, and you got to remember to look, that kind of stuff, I had to have confidence that they were going to protect me on the things that I did not see. Because I had limitations. I had my left hand on my dog's leash quite often, or his collar, and my hand on my gun that had a flashlight on it, but that limited where I could see, where I had needed the other guys to look in other places.
Awesome.
And then we have what's called a rear guard, who's going to look for anything that's coming from behind us, because sometimes the bad guy can get behind us and come and attack us from the rear.
Love it.
And so that rear guard is always there. But the hardest thing is to stay focused forward and having faith that you are protected from behind.
Amen.
And then the hand on the shoulder, you squeeze depending on whether they were supposed to move forward or not. And so there'd be a man's hand on my shoulder. We didn't have women. I'm just going to tell you, we didn't have women on SWAT team. So, but it'd be the man behind me, and he would squeeze, or he would turn or push, and he would guide me based on what, information he may have had or something he saw and that kind of stuff, or he would tell me to stop.
Yes.
Like, don't go forward, but with a squeeze in his hand.
Wow.
So, and 2 squeezes meant go forward. and that type of stuff. So that's exactly what, and that really sold it for me. Because I couldn't figure it out until you said that. And I go, oh, that's kind of like, although I'm in front, I'm not alone.
And you're depending on
and have faith in the training of the guys behind me, that they will take care of me, that they will protect me, that they will allow me to go home at the end of this situation that we're in. So,
and God is the ultimate.
Oh my gosh. Those guys were good, but God is amazing.
Right?
The other thing on this devotional, which I think is important to hear, is the good is always the enemy of the best. Oh, gosh, I love that. I love that. I as a police officer, when I was self-talk, it was that I never wanted to be mediocre.
Right.
I studied, I talked about this before, where I did everything I could to learn the craft. I would go out of my way on my own time. Today's employee quite often won't do anything unless they're getting paid for it.
Yes.
And so I always try to tell my employees or my children, I said, when you are seeking a job, you can be mediocre and only do the minimum, and not, go out of your way or even on your own time to learn more about your craft. But do you want to be mediocre?
Right.
Do you just want to just show up and then go home? And
how many Christians live their lives like that?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. So it's, you got to go the extra mile.
And even though you went the extra mile for everything else that you got involved in, because you got involved in a lot of off the beaten track, whether it was CBD or promotion, marketing, video production, even though your essence was a cop, and canines, and you delved into those with such precision and professionality, but yet when it comes to God, you were just kind of like, oh, yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. People do it all the time.
I mean, you're so right.
I meet Christians that have been Christians for 20, 30 years. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Like, why is your life not an adventure? So
yeah, please comment. Let us know if you've run into this from time to time. And especially with God, it seems like this would be, if anything, this would be the thing that I would as I am now, diving into it and studying and reading devotionals and going to church, not only on Sundays, but on Wednesdays, not always physically going, but making sure that I watch, and then watching other pastors and learning from them and knowing the differences between one and the other.
Absolutely.
So crazy. It makes sense.
Yes.
But I don't know why I didn't do it then. I mean, I can go all the way back to when I wanted to be a magician and a comedian.
Yeah.
And I was writing. We didn't have, phones that would transcribe. I hand transcribed almost every comedian that I watched. I wrote down their words, their timing, where their hands were when they spoke, and where they stood, how they stood, the inflections in their voice. I wrote all that stuff down.
You gotta do the same thing for Jesus.
Why did that not carry over? So weird.
Oh, that's the enemy.
And the other thing is, this is funny too. I never did that for any of my other relationships because it takes
work.
You have to dive in. You have to be totally
committed,
immersed in the craft of being a spouse.
Yes, that is good.
I know.
That is awesome.
I just don't want to be good. I want to be best.
Exactly.
Mother of pearl.
I invite all of you to think of everything we do in life that way, but most importantly, Christ.
That seems like that's a course.
What?
Teaching people how to be the best spouse.
Right?
Not just, do you want to just be good? Because how many times do people get married just based on, well, let's see how things go?
And not how do you have the best marriage, but how do you be the best spouse?
Yes.
Putting the onus on yourself and not always looking to the other person to be like, how is this person going to complete me? But thinking about what am I going to do? And as Pastor Mark always says, especially in a biblical relationship, stop looking forward and start looking up. And everything that comes at you that hurts or takes offense, because actually that's one of the worst things that God says is to take offense. Interestingly enough, is that when you do feel that come on, look up and allow the Lord to talk to you and walk you through what it means to be a godly spouse, whether it's a godly husband or a godly wife. Stop thinking about what the other person's doing and focus on what you're doing.
It's hard work to be the best. To be best, it is easier to be good. It requires commitment.
Oh, hallelujah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I was curious, we're watching this movie about this man who wants to have a child by himself. So he's not gay. He gets a surrogate to have a child alone. And the surrogate asks him, "Why are you alone?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. I just got tired of living my life on repeat. I feel like I need to move forward, and there's a child." And the first thing that occurs to me is he wants the lifetime commitment of a child that doesn't ever end, that is extremely difficult, but won't put that work into a relationship. And how many people nowadays are doing those kinds of things? Whether it's a pet is a lot less responsibility, but a child is a very heavy responsibility. You know what I mean? People like just willy-nilly getting children like as if they're pets. And us having children will tell you it's not easy having a child, but people assume, and probably rightly so, there's this never-ending reservoir to get you over the difficulties that you may not have with a spouse, but that you should have with a spouse. The commitment that this is life or death. I'm going to tell the grave digger to dig too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you go into it with that same level of commitment, failure is not an option.
Right. It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. So it requires being the best spouse, not having the best marriage on the outset, but committing to the Lord that you'll be the best spouse.
Wow, what a difference!
What a difference!
Now I need to go to the more difficult thing, I think, in what we were talking about earlier, what you were saying earlier about how you followed God's prompting and His word and His promise, and somehow it was me. That still shocks me. Like, what the? Okay. Considering the world you're in, I mean, you were worldly and in a world of a whole bunch of other dudes, and you chose me.
Awesome.
Which is so odd, but I'm okay with it. But as a father of 3 daughters, I would say the same thing that you mentioned. Like, what are you doing? It's just like 7 months. I ask you again, I think I've asked you this before. How do you know? How do you discern when it's you talking to yourself as opposed to God talking to you and giving you direction? Like, obviously, God told me that I should marry this guy. I just met him last week at Starbucks or on Tinder. This has to be. Look at his profile. His profile and his picture are amazing.
So a couple of things, because I had some false starts. I did. I mean, like I thought other people were. I did not hear from God that they were. I thought they were, and I was hoping God would oblige. And so there's a huge difference between thinking something is what God wants and hearing God say it. So in my false starts, it's something I thought it's what God wanted, and literally, God was so gracious to me. He course corrected me in under 5 days, usually within 24 hours or 48 hours, but never more than a week. And it was either something dramatic would happen. He would speak to me. It became extremely clear very quickly. Juxtapose that to what my experience with you, where he spoke to me in church the next day and recited to me things that weren't in my conscience. So in other words, the checklist, I tell people, I talk about that I had this checklist that I had worked through with God of qualities that I had hoped that my spouse would have. And the Lord literally ran through that checklist with me and says, I gave you every single one. You wanted a man with children, to have a family for your daughter. You wanted to be close to the church. You wanted somebody in the church. You wanted somebody that shared your background, and most importantly, was at the same place in their walk with Christ, that loved the Lord and wanted to live a spirit-filled life. And so those things weren't readily in my conscience. And so when he recited them to me, I knew it was him speaking. And that's just a power and a strength that comes when you are misled by your own fleshly desires,
Mhm.
when he does speak, it's very clear. The difference is very clear.
And then understanding when you're being misled by the other person, because we've heard and learned from other people that met online, for
Yes.
instance, that they put in there that they're godly and they're going to church and all this kind of stuff, and then they meet for the first time, and then pretty quickly realize that maybe they're not so much
And I mean,
on that walk.
I
But they make the mistake of thinking, well, maybe I can get them, and maybe I can push them the rest of the way. Making that mistake that you think you can change them, or you can.
Holy. I can't even tell you how many of those I had.
Oh.
I can't even tell you, because actually most of the people that I met were online,
Mhm.
because I didn't have physical contact with a lot of people. It was most of the time, even before COVID, I stayed in the house. I didn't go anywhere but out to the grocery store and to pick up my daughter and drop my daughter and go to my
Mhm.
parents' house. So a lot of the people were online, and everybody based on my profile said they were a Christian and had bizarre habits. And I kept telling my mentor, I was like, I don't understand how these people call themselves Christians. And she's like, yeah, well, welcome to the world. It's the same in every religion. People say they're one thing and they are actually another. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
It's like taking a skinny picture and then they show up and they go, "Oh, but
well, wow. I've had a couple of those too.
What happened?"
Yeah. Well, how old is that picture, young man? Come on now. But yeah, and I feel so. My heart goes out to friends that I know that are still single, who do exactly what you say. They start to accommodate the lack
close
of,
enough.
Yeah. I think I can fix him. I had this one friend of mine who was dating this guy for over a year, who she really didn't like. Was just not a nice person. He was a believer, but like when I met him for the first time, I was like, this is not a nice guy. And she's like, yeah, you think so? I have that sense too. That he's like a really angry, quiet person. And I was like, so then why are you dating him still? And he's like, well, because he looks really good on paper. Like, he's Christian and he's lives a faithful life. And I was like, yeah. So he looks like he would beat you if you got out of line. Like, I don't know. There's something in those eyes that is freaking me out, And she's like, I know, I see the same thing. The kids see it too. And I was
for a year, she's been looking at it.
Yeah. And I was like, so what are you doing? But yeah. I got stories.
Yeah. You know what I like that, and this just, it could be just us, but I doubt it, that God, and we've shared some of these stories over the last couple of days, that God has given us little Easter eggs or little breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Easter egg, like, here, look at this. I'm going to show you something. And they just these little things that kind of confirm that what we were telling you is true.
Yes.
But if you're constantly trying to go, well, maybe if I just do this differently, he or she will change. Or if I just ignore that, I'm going to have to accept that. You probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't accept.
You probably should.
Mediocrity.
You
want the best.
And not that we're perfect.
No.
But that once you hear, by no means, folks, but once you accept that it is God's will, he will send that confirmation to you regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, one of the last things when the Lord ran through this checklist, at the very end, he says to me, and don't let him leave. Because I had a tendency, and I think you ever told.
No, I don't think so.
I did. I told you, and he says at the end, and don't let him leave. And I knew, based on the words that he used, he meant that not that you would like fight to leave, but that I would see a fault and I would run, because that's my tendency. Because I got so used to having false starts that I would be like, I'm out. I wouldn't waste any time. I would leave. I would ghost completely. And when he said that, I knew that when you told me about the cancer and the COVID came, and because we had this onslaught that happened after I heard from the Lord.
Yes.
And
you're like, bring that up.
You know what I mean? And then you were like, why are you still here? And that's exactly what, and the Lord knew that. And that's why he told me, he's like, and don't let him leave. Like, meaning that he knew that I'd take one look at that and be like, okay, I think I'm making a mistake here. I'm out. And so he told me the things that I needed to hear to make sure that we would make it through. And look, we made it through those things.
Mhm.
They were, especially the COVID thing. It was a blip in the radar.
Right. There were a couple things too that tested you,
Oh,
your resilience, right? I mean, not just those things, but I mean, other things
absolutely.
like, I'm trying to think of an equivalent because I can't tell you what it is, but um, let's just say that I told you that I wasn't the Scientologist, for instance, like
Mhm.
yeah, that's close enough. That I said I was Scientologist, I wasn't Scientologist, and you go, okay, that's good. And then somebody came up, hey, Andy, you still doing that Scientology thing? And I go, and then you go, I thought you said that you were done with that or you'd never done that. I go, no, I swear. I don't know what that person's talking about. But I did the swear and that I'm no longer doing this thing. And I did. And you're going, I thought you right? That whole thing.
Yes.
And then I go, look there's a video of me not doing that thing. And you go, oh, thank God you found that because I wasn't too sure. I thought you had lied to me. It was that. I mean, it was that. The Scientology doesn't even make it as bad as it was. It was like prison time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I hadn't done prison time. And I go, hey, Andy, you're finally out of prison. No, I never was in prison. And it was a person that was like of integrity, right? A person that would know. And I'm going, no, what they're saying is not true. And then you it stuck around long enough for me to show that what they said was not true.
Well, and again, that's because of the Lord's promises, and that the Lord has plans to prosper you and to give you joy and to give you hope and a future. And I was like, okay, back up a second. I'm on this path because the Lord put me here. So there is got to be a logical explanation,
Yeah.
But in normal circumstances, without the Lord's guidance, I wouldn't have tolerated it.
No. I want to give him that chance to give you the proof.
Yes.
The word trust keeps coming to me.
Trust in the Lord your God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most important aspect.
Yeah, it's just finding. I mean, it's just like it makes no sense that we had to wait all these years and go through.
But it does, right?
I know.
How do we speak to people otherwise?
But when he said trust, it's like we have to trust in the Lord that this is all that was all planned.
Absolutely.
And be okay with it and not angry at God is my tendency. I've been angry at God so bad, so much. That my tendency is to go there and say, what the hell? What can you give me? Wait, what? And then we realized both we go, we never would have made it 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We never would have even looked at each other.
Absolutely.
You never would have looked at a short Mexican with a lawnmower.
I love you. God's timing is perfect.
Yeah. But
folks,
trust in God and trust in your spouse, trust in your, the person that you're courting and making sure all those bits and pieces are in place. And then most other stuff will follow.
Yes.
Our recovery time gets quicker and quicker of, disputes or disagreements.
Well, that's the Lord's promises, right? Is that
mostly because of you, but yes.
No, you are amazingly thoughtful. And early on, when things would upset me, the Lord constantly would say to me, daughter, you have to learn to love unconditionally. If you love this man unconditionally and you give, you will see he will give in return. And that's been so true with you because you are an amazingly compassionate and giving person. And I think you've just been hurt a lot. And so that those patterns had developed from hurt. And that when you trusted me also, that and the Lord's promises, that you would be open and kind and compassionate and all those things that you are. And I knew that also because I see you with your kids. And we nowadays, if you're older like us, then you're looking at a person with a relationship with their kids. But people in the old days used to say, what is their relationship with their parents or their family? And it was often a good indication, at least in Middle Eastern culture, that a man would look to the family of the bride and how did she treat her family? So they would have her bring tea to serve tea and see, Does she know how to serve tea? Does she make tea? How does she talk to her mom and her dad? What is her relationship with her siblings? To see what are those person's patterns. And so I could see from your relationship with your children that you absolutely knew how to give unconditionally and love unconditionally and be passionate and sensitive and caring. So that capacity was there. It's just coming together as spouses and learning how to do that in a spousal relationship. A theme that's constantly coming up, right? Is I'm constantly marveling over the difference between a relationship with kids and a spouse, and how do we transfer that dedication that we have to children to a spouse.
You have to want to be the best.
You have to want to be the best.
And not just good.
And not just good.
And sometimes you just want to be crappy.
Sometimes you want to push the I don't give a foof button. Yeah. Yes.
Hoping they'll just go away.
Yes.
Don't go there. You want to be the best.
Yes.
Ugh.
And that also means being the best disciple. And I love this explanation of Abram and Lot, because Abram left it to Lot. So they were at a point where they needed to part ways, that they had resources and a community that couldn't grow next to each other anymore. And so the Lord had commanded them to separate. And so Abram let Lot choose the better land. And everyone would normally say, what are you doing? You know, like, why would you let this guy choose the better spot? But he knew that he was trusting that the Lord would give him the spot that belonged to him. And that's what we have to believe, is that the Lord wants the best for us. So if we just let go of our need to control the outcome, God will make it all work out.
Wow. I love what I've learned today.
Me too.
Can't wait to pass it on. It's the immersion that I put in, so much about myself, the immersion that I put into all those other things. Clearly the reason why this works even better is that we both immersed ourselves in living a life as a couple with God, intertwined in everything that we're doing. And that takes work, takes a commitment, as Robert said.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
The difference.
And any of you Holy Spirit single individuals, do not settle for anything less. Compromise the other things. Compromise the fleshly things. This person is as pretty as I expected, or I wanted somebody younger, or I wanted somebody richer, or I wanted somebody with a better job. You find a Holy Spirit warrior, seek first the kingdom, and the rest will be added unto you. The Lord will work out those details if you seek first the kingdom of God. And there's nothing more important. God doesn't tell you in the Bible. He talks about being equally yoked, which is spiritual. He talks about seeking first the kingdom. He talks about following him and being strong and courageous. Never does he say, look for somebody that's cute, pretty, and young, or you know what I mean? Right. Or somebody that's really rich. Those are not qualities that God is defining in his kingdom. He's concerned with people being equally yoked spiritually so that he can lead them into the promises.
Absolutely. Let me read this whole paragraph that includes the sentence that I read earlier. But the whole thing is so good. Whenever our right becomes the guiding factor of our lives, it dulls our spiritual insight. The greatest enemy of the life of faith in God is not sin, but good choices which are not quite good enough. The good is always the enemy of the best. In this passage, it would seem that the wisest thing in the world for Abram to do would be to choose. It was his right, and the people around him would consider him to be a fool for not choosing. And we again, it's the times that people have said, "What are you doing?" And calling that into question. But wanting to be the best and not settling for just being good. We've talked a lot, right? We've talked through these things a lot. We've went to the Bible a lot. We've done the devotional, obviously, in front of you and talked through these things and had revelations based on these devotionals. And so we would be a fool for not choosing God.
Yes. He's so awesome. So much fun.
Not a fool for choosing our right, but we'd be a fool for not choosing God.
Yes.
And then our kids. I mean, our kids see it.
Yes.
It grosses them out, and it causes them to be shocked because they've never seen either one of us this way.
No.
And they've mentioned it and talked about it, but that choice of choosing God first is the game changer. It just simply is. There's nothing else I can tell you.
Amen.
And I know we look young. Why do you laugh? Why do you laugh?
Because
you're laughing at me.
No, I don't look young at all.
Oh,
so I'm not making.
Please, girl, come on, girl. But for those of you that are still waiting, or you're in your 40s or whatever, and you think, "Oh, is it ever going to come?" I don't know how to tell you that. Just
wait on him.
The one thing that you may be missing is a relationship with God. That definitely is the place to start, because He will be with you if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling like you have nobody to talk to, if whatever that is, if you're feeling fearful, that God can change all those things. And so starting there, as opposed to Tinder, or as opposed to eHarmony, whatever that is. I mean, surely you could use those things later. Yeah,
I tried them all, folks.
You gotta choose God first, and then allow Him to work in you and around you, and to bring the right people close to you, so you can make wise choices, especially the choice to be the best.
Yes. One last story I want to share. I was at a meeting which was really all about me and my relationship with my daughter at church. And in the last minute, the last woman who shared there was this lovely young girl that was really had begun her journey healing with the Lord. She had been very promiscuous as a teenager, drug user, drinker, and she had recently turned to the Lord and was coming to our church, which was, like me, very far away from her at first. She drives 55 miles to come to church. And she's just kind of waiting on the Lord to heal the pain and so to find the next stage in her life. And so she had hooked up with this guy at church. No, not a guy at church, a friend that she had met separately through school. And after being engaged in a relationship for a year, he comes out that he's gay. And so it was devastating for her. And the Lord starts to download all these things that I'm supposed to walk over to this girl and tell her. And of course, the first thing I'm feeling is extremely shy and hesitant. I do not want to say anything to this complete stranger, but the Lord is, tell her my promises on her life. And I was obedient, and I went over and I told her, because there were so many amazing people that did the same thing to me. They would see me in church. One of my first churches, I'll never forget this one lady that prophesied over me, who said, I see your pain. She said, I see you walking and you're crying. And she's like, and you don't see that you have a legion of angels behind you that are guiding you and pushing you and encompassing you. She's like, don't ever lose faith. I promise you, I see it. The promises of the Lord will come true for you. And I cried hysterically. And I was so grateful. Her words are like as if she said them yesterday. So I went over to this young lady and I said exactly what the Lord told me, that He said He will redeem and restore her. He will make her new. He will send her an amazing spouse that will love her as God commands her to be loved, and how she should be loved, and to never leave the church, and that she will find Him in our church, and that it's a far distance, and it takes a big commitment, but she will see her life change at that church.
Wow.
I just went out. I'm like, hi, you don't know me from Adam, but I just want to share this with you. This is what the Lord told me, and I just wanted to share this with you. And she cried, and I was like, okay.
Wow.
I thought that meeting was all about me, but apparently it was about her too.
Yeah. And even at church, on occasion, I've seen you zoom around to just see, all of a sudden you're gone and you're over talking to somebody holding their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every so often. So it just, when it happens, you got to go with it.
Yes. Especially when it's uncomfortable.
I'm not that good.
Right. Jack says, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's when you know you're supposed to do
it. As far as that's concerned, I'm still at the good level.
Yes.
And
you're going to get there.
I got to work at being the best. Hey, I want to let you know, at 11 o'clock today, Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be interviewing the authors of a book called The $4.83. That's what it's called. $4.83. Today is launching. if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to wait for the broadcast, but if you go to Kindle on Amazon and just type in $4.83, the cost to impact the life of a child for a year, you'll want to go there and purchase that book for 99 cents. Make sure and go to the Kindle version, purchase it for 99 cents. We're launching the book today at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm interviewing the authors of this book. And it's a very fun idea and project to help children get out of poverty. And doing it with $4.83.
Yeah, it's using microfinance tools to impact the kingdom and to increase charitable outreach with minimal amount of resources. It's very cool. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm trying to click on it. There, it goes away. Oh, look at you. Yeah.
Why is my name suddenly there?
Because you're amazing, Esquire. Miss Esquire.
There you go.
What's it? Oh.
Miss Esquire. And Andy's daughter once looked at me and she's like, "You look like a lawyer. Why are you dressed like that?" And I'm like, "Funny you should say that. I actually am a lawyer." And she says, and she didn't even know.
No.
She's like, "I didn't know you were a lawyer." And I was like,
"Wait, do you expect me to talk to my kids? Tell them what's going on?"
So funny.
But again, that's the show will be probably right where you're watching this. This show, it'll be at 11 p.m. Pacific or 11 a.m. Oh my gosh, did I say p.m. earlier?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I will be talking to the authors. I think there are just two of the three. I'll be talking to one of them.
Awesome.
Wasn't able to make it today. And we'll be launching that. It'll be interesting. Listen to what their story is.
Yes.
And how they came across this project. Anything else on our devotional today?
No, just we got to strive to be the best. Don't settle for good.
Gosh, I
good
love that sentence.
is the enemy of the best.
Wow. Just one sentence.
Yes.
Life-changing.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, my friends. We love you guys. Again, make sure if you're watching the replay that you comment. Let us know that you're watching the replay and give us your thoughts on the subject of today's devotional from Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest. You can find it at utmost.org. Go there and see today's devotional. All right, my love. I love you.
God bless you. We love you. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.